Here we have a great panel here. Joining me is George, Amog, and Shubro. Why don't you introduce yourself, starting with George?
Great. Thanks, Satya. Good afternoon. I'm George Kazmarsky. I'm a partner at EY in our consulting business. I lead our automation services and financial services.
Amog.
Hi, I'm Amog Naik from the Guardian Life Insurance Company. In my role, I'm responsible for delivering the benefits of automation, strategy and roadmaps, and scaling the program.
Shubro.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shubra Gupta, and I lead disruptive technologies for Prudential. It involves research on disruptive technologies as well as solution deployment.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Let me start with you, George. You being the industry consultant and also being an advisor, trusted advisor in the industry. What do you think are the key imperatives and trends that are actually driving today's mandate on the insurance industry due to the current the workforce dynamics, right? That's happening. Let us call it as a great resignation or quiet quitting, whatever they want to call. But what are the key impact that is driving on the operations side of it? And also, Ellen was mentioning about some of the priorities, how that is also the operations that is impacting the key priorities of the insurance industry.
Yeah. I think to say the last 2 years have been interesting is an understatement. We've seen incredible volatility and transient behavior in the workforce. I think we're all seeing it's very difficult to find talent or to keep talent, and when you do find it, you're paying a premium for it right now, right? On one end. The other thing we're seeing is we're getting a lot of pressure internally in insurance that we can't scale linearly in the workforce with our growth, right? And then the constant pressures, obviously, of productivity improvements, efficiency, and dare I say, like cost pressures. So we're seeing that on one side. On the other side, it's almost like we've had an addiction to experienced hires, right? And that we're going to see more adoption of organic growth in our workforce, and it's going to force us to have a younger generation coming in working with us, right? We, for example, at EY, we hired 4,000 interns this past summer, across our different services, audit, tax, and consulting. To say they have different expectations than the majority of us in the room is also an understatement. They want purpose. They want a work-life balance. They want to be CEO in 3 years, right? And so you have to deal with it a little differently. But the flip side is they're also incredibly technically savvy. And you put those two together, they don't want to do mundane work, right? They expect a level of productivity and efficiency that comes with being technically enabled, right? The last kind of dynamic we're seeing is, which has plagued the insurance industry for years, is an aging workforce. And you kind of put all that together, and I think the net of it is for us, and where I kind of get really excited about this topic of automation, is that we need to, and it's not optional, we genuinely need to ingrain automation into the fabric of everything we do. And that's in the back office, it's in the general operations, but it's also as a utility to the individual worker in operation of their day-to-day tasks. So I don't know if that makes sense or you guys have anything to add, but that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And to draw upon what George was mentioning, Shubro, insurance industry is not new to this workforce churn or crunch. We have been seeing a lot of retirement since 2016, 17, 18 itself, right? But what has changed now is the way how the new digital workforce is coming in. And when we were going through this 5 years, 6 years, 7 years digital transformation, the new workforce coming and disrupting that, how do you see that? What are the different capabilities that you see that the insurers are adopting in terms of bringing this together? Like while there is a long digital transformation happening, and also the new workforce coming and looking for new set of skills and stuff, how do you see that this is converging into?
I think to answer that question, one thing that we need to consider is the personas that are in the mix. There are two personas. One is the customer, the end user, who will be getting the product and services from insurance company. And the other persona is basically the employees who's delivering that service and product, right? And if you think about them in their day-to-day life, they are also customer of Amazon, Google, WhatsApp, Twitter, and they're using those mediums, right? So the habit that they are growing, they're going to expect the same kind of technology experience from an insurance company as well. Although insurance is more like a event-driven business. You don't see a lot of interactions on a day-to-day basis with the insurance company. It's an event-driven business. But now we are thinking of, maybe everybody's thinking of, that how can you create the data? How can you create the power of data, have better understanding of your customer, and build technology that will help you to really serve your customer better? Even the employees, as George mentioned, nobody wants to do mundane work. I can take a specific example. A lot of people are here in the room from insurance industry. And think about address. The proof of address impacts multiple business process when you go to your back office operation. There are people who are maybe running processes which are there because the address on file or record is not correct. And how many people will like to just process transactions like that? There you can bring in automation. There you can bring in a lot of solutions which will be digital in nature, and it will help you to connect with your customer better. So I see that evolution happening, and I think automation plays a very important role there. At the end of the day, in my mind, it's a 3E model. It's more like you enable both customer and the employees to do things better. You get them more engaged, and then you empower them. Empowerment is something which will drive automation in a big manner, and the adaptability of automation will increase when you have made people more empowered.
Sure. Thank you, Shubhro, for that insight. Amok, coming to the empowerment and enablement and employee, when it comes to the key transformation, you have gone through some of the digital transformations, and you have seen that employees getting enabled there, right? What are the key areas, front office to back office, that you have seen that the entire experience has been changing? How the automation plays a role, specifically from the front office to back office?
So I think, so first, thanks for the question. I think if I look at transformation, right, fundamentally those have changed over the years. In the old days, you would have one transformation, then you would go 10 years, then you would have another. Now you have 4 transformations running simultaneously. It's almost like death by transformation, right? So from that perspective, if you look at the role automation plays, obviously automation is a key component of your digital transformation. But if you look at like non-automation transformation, what it has helped us is it helps us create SME bandwidth. Because the SMEs who were earlier doing the task are now freed up to help with the transformation, right? That's one. The second thing it also does is it helps make your transformation smaller and more manageable. So you can take all of the ancillary pieces around the transformation and you can automate those, and that kind of helps your transformation succeed and makes it more predictable. Now, in terms of areas where we've seen automation play that role, I mean, anything that's run the business is easily a candidate for automation. It goes without saying. There were 1-2 areas where we're seeing a tremendous, success. One is contact center, right? I think Ellen was referring to it. If we look at pre-pandemic, we had a contact center where 10% of the staff had an experience of less than 2 years. Now it's the other way around, right? Like 10% of the staff might have experience of more than 2 years. So in that kind of a mix, whatever we've been able to automate through digital assistant, voice assistants, et cetera, has helped stabilize all that, the work, the churn, and maintain customer satisfaction. The other area where we see a lot of success is anything that has paper. That we have an initiative called ZIP. It's something zero paper something. But anything where there's a lot amount of paper that's being consumed or being used, etc. Through automation, we've been able to save the trees, but also reduce the time it takes for things to get processed.
And that's
one thing, if I may quickly add here, it's also to do with the response time. Pandemic has shown us that there are so many processes in insurance which will have seasonal spike. And you had the process of, onboarding temp staff, manage that seasonal peak over a period of time. Or there are situations where you will have an ad hoc requirement and you will put it through the IT funnel of prioritization. And those options were gone overnight, right? You had to react with those situations and drive it differently. And we have seen a lot of success with automation in those areas as well.
Excellent point,
And
Shubhro.
I'll agree with that. We had some, so like, in our business, we go through the busy season spike. So you have a lot of temps coming in for a small period of time. And then there is a lot of focus in getting them up to speed, having them contribute quickly. And in a number of those cases, having automated through those bots, like we're saving 20, 25 FTEs during that busy season.
And that goes back to a couple of things here, right? One is that we consistently discussed about two types of personas. One is the employees. The employee can be permanent employees or seasonal workers, but the customer remains the same. They want to get a exact same experience regardless of whom they are dealing with. This becomes more important in a relationship business with like insurance. In insurance, what we are doing is sending a policy and promising something, and customer trust it, right? So it's a relationship business driven by data. So given that, which are all the areas, specific areas? You already touched upon, Amog, you touched upon contact center, and Shubhro, you touched upon again customer service. But apart from that, a lot of times when we see the middle office functions, like the underwriters, claims managers, they usually say that we are not directly touching the customer. So are we even improving the customer experience by simply automating something? So those sort of questions come. So given that, can you please provide us some more details into middle office and back office functions where you can still deliver same customer experience and also adding the enterprise value as a part of the automation?
Yeah, sure. I can take a stab at it. So when it comes to those back office or middle office processes, which are very sensitive to, like customer journey, like death claims, for example. You process a death claim on time, that creates a huge impact on the customer morale because they don't know much about maybe your company, but they are basically trying to come to you at a point when they are looking for that fund, that financial support, and they get it on time. That makes a huge difference. But the process that we have maybe in any insurance company to go through that death claim journey, it will be not always frictionless. I will say that a lot of times it happens that the insurance companies will actually give a home task to the beneficiary to finish certain things, give it to the insurance company, and then the entire claim will get processed. But if you can make it more streamlined, more automated, you create a huge impact.
Amol?
No, I agree. I think everything that is said, I think customer experience is not just customer facing, right? Customer experience is about the entire journey the customer has through your organization. So if you look at, claims, I mean, we had processes where just the intake of the claim used to take days. Now we do it in like minutes by automation, because earlier it would go through, a form would come in, then somebody would read it, type it in, et cetera, et cetera. Through automation, we've kind of cut off almost about 20-25% of the time it takes for us to process a claim, just in the intake. I mean, I'm not even talking about auto adjudication and other stuff, just the intake part itself, and that's huge.
Judge.
No, what I found interesting, the word frictionless really matters. And I think, as we look at it, whether it's in the call center, in a claim adjuster or an agent, right? We're trying to protect the moments that matter when we engage. And to the extent that you can apply automation to remove any of that friction, whether it's administrative or otherwise, that's where we're seeing a lot of the focus.
Okay. And Amog, you mentioned about multiple transformation going in a way, right? So if you think about automation as an enabler in some of those transformations, so which are all the areas that you have seen that automation has been enabler in those transformational work?
I think it's a number of areas. If I look at the entire value chain, and some of it we are still in the process. One is around getting what the customer wants, right? So for instance, we had our website where customers would come in, and we had a nice FAQ on the website, this is how you do it. We actually took that and said, let's create a chatbot where the customers can interact with it. The kind of information we got through that chatbot from what the customer were asking the chatbot was not on anyone's radar, right? The kind of questions they have, the frustrations they have, all of this, the kind of data the automation delivers, I think it has been huge. And I'm sure there are other areas, but that's one where it's really a side benefit or a side effect that we didn't take it into account. And that's helping us in a big way as we design products and help our customers.
Okay, okay. And Judge, what you have seen, broader on a broader front, which are all the other, I would say, technology levers? I would not just to simply call it as technology, but more like a capability levers that are being adopted by by a broader insurance industry.
Yeah. So what we found interestingly is we were very quick to go after task level automations and restricting how we were thinking about applying technology. And so, if we're at a task level, it tends to be at task orchestration. Fits with RPA, fits with BPM, et cetera. But when we try to get end-to-end automation, right, and you really look like the onboarding process, and I forget what you called it. I call it war on paper, right? Digitizing,
Zero paper.
Zero paper. Digitizing data, orchestrating, moving around. So we're seeing a few things right now. The RPA, the BPM, the low code, no code we talked about earlier is getting a lot of focus. All things related to OCR, and in general, any way to digitize input. So whether it's processing emails, inferring chatbots, and getting the data out of that, but that's the core of it. There's some fringe technologies around smart forms that are coming in. We find interesting, but the core of it is still the task orchestration, the OCR, the BPM, low code, no code.
Okay. So when it comes to the task orchestration or BPM and also even digitization, Shubhro, a lot of times that human-machine collaboration becomes a critical point. Again, I will draw back on my comment on insurance industry being a relationship-driven industry, and to your point that there is a seasonal workforce that also can spike during certain times. The machine collaboration. So, which are all the areas you see that human machine collaboration that are actually picking up in the organization, and also like what are the key benefits that are driven by that?
There are a few examples that I can take. If I go back to those claims and money out processes in the insurance industry, there is an element of you look into the claim or you look into the request, you do a quick check whether it is in good order or not, and if it is in good order, you process. If it is not in good order, that's where the problem starts. And that's where you start like interacting with the customer back and forth. So where I see a lot of use of human in the loop in a direct customer interaction is those kind of situations where things which are more rule-based, automate them. When it comes to like doing that customer interaction outbound, you can still automate them. You can send a letter with automated bot activity. But when that particular interaction comes back again, you can bring in the human in the loop aspect and make it a better experience for the customer. One example that I can quote is, I have seen in a lot of companies when they launch the chatbot, they launch it with the FAQ bot, right? And there can be situations where the FAQ bot is giving hard links and giving information that the customer needs, but maybe from the call log analysis, you will see somebody is actually trying to file a claim, and they are really like worried about their claim. You understand that from the data analysis. You don't wait for a process. You basically set up a process where somebody will call and talk to that person and solve for it immediately, and you don't wait for the technology to take care of it over a period of time. And that's where I think human in the loop comes into the play big time. Anytime you do this digital technology rollout, you need to keep in mind that there has to be a digital human in the loop process in mix that will give the best customer experience initially, and that will create the foundation for end-to-end automation at a later stage. But you cannot undermine that human in the loop aspect in the beginning of the journey.
Can I add to that something? I think what Shubha's highlighting here is we can't lose sight of the importance of predictive analytics embedded with automation to be able to proactively serve our customers, right? So that insight has to become actionable, and we have to operationalize it. And we sometimes overlook that, right? We're too busy being reactionary as opposed to proactive.
That's right. And also there is always a buzz or hype about the new technologies, right? When in 2012, when mobility came, somebody was telling me that all the shops are going to get closed. Walmart is going to close the shop, which never happened. They opened more stores. So it becomes more like a multi-channel experience. So given that, again, this being a relationship industry, but still it is driven by that data and technology underneath it. Because I was talking to someone just a couple of weeks ago. He mentioned that, okay, we are a technology company that drives in, that also sells insurance. But when the mindset is about I'm running an insurance shop, then about being a technology company is all about just a branding, right? So given that, with respect to the business, the key core business you are in, how do you see the disruptive technologies that you are applying? Key areas, the next level of disruptive technologies that you are planning to apply pragmatically into your business. So, Shubhro.
It goes back to my point initially that I said, right? Those two personas, customer and the employees, they are using disruptive technologies in their day-to-day life. So adoption is not a problem in my mind. The problem is the access to the right level of data being an insurance company. How many of you have seen instances where you are trying to maybe take your customer to the online registration and you don't have the customer email address, or you don't have the customer details or the phone number? Because insurance is, again, it's not a very highly interactive business. You might have collected customer data 10 years back, which is not relevant now. Now, how will you increase the digital adoption when you even don't have the right set of data? So I think that's where the friction is. That's where the challenge is. But the adoption, at least in my experience of driving digital transformation in the last 20 years, I have seen people want to do the new thing. They don't want to do the old thing. They are actually open to change the moment they understand it is going to help them reduce friction, deliver the experience that they want, and do it in a cool manner, right?
Thanks, Shubhro. Amol?
So I think if you look at the buzzword technologies that I think are going to become, less of a buzzword and more of like, what we have to adopt, I see 2 or 3 areas. One is, as you kind of get done with your low-hanging fruit and stuff like that, you reach a point where you have the solution in automation, but for defining the problem, you're dependent on a business stakeholders. Guys, what do I automate? What have you, etc. So I think, technologies that help you define the problem, because you have the solution already. It's like, how do I take the dependency out there? That's one. The second thing that I see becoming, this is a question our CIO asked me: when do we automate automation? Right? And that, you talk about semantic automation, etc. But we're going to get to a point where we're going to be talking about, okay, we have automated the human part of it. How do we automate the automation? And the third area that I see that will require solutioning either with existing technologies or maybe newer technology is the kind of data that automation throws up. Earlier, when a human used to do the work, you would only capture the data, what was the end product of it. Did it succeed, fail, whatever, comments, etc. Now, as you have bots doing it, the kind of data that gets generated is massive, and there's a wealth of information in that data as well. So how do we get technology to use that to make better business decisions?
Excellent point. Judge?
What was the question? I'll cut up the answers.
It's awesome answers, actually. I was also caught onto that. Actually, it's about the pragmatic application of disruptive technologies in the insurance.
Yeah. Let me piggyback a little bit on what Amog is saying. We've been watching this for a while. We were so quick to automate processes. In a way, we're almost automating what exists today. But Amog's point's valid. If we do this right, we should be instrumenting those processes to identify signals that should be going off at every step, right? And then, pragmatically, we capture that data, we throw it in data warehouse or whatever, you pick your poison, and add the layer on top of it. I think that's an important point that we as an industry just haven't really adopted yet. And the opportunity, to your point of, the insights coming out of it are big.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions from the audience? We have maybe 3 more minutes. Yeah, so I think we can park it for the end of the session because we have an open session for the questions. And George, Amog, and Shubhro, you will be in the happy hours, right? So please reach out and you can collaborate with them.
You promised drinks, we'll be there.
Our answers might change depending upon what goes inside our bodies.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. Thank you.